Alright, today's old camera is going to be a Bolta Photavit III. If you've never heard of that camera, don't worry, I hadn't either. It was also known as the Miniature Marvel. Now that last one's definitely going to give you a hint about why I'm so excited to get into this. I didn't even realize the scale of the quirks of this camera, but let's get into it. If you're wondering why this box is so big, it did come with some other junk. I don't think it had anything to do with the camera itself. But there's something in there that's not junk. Oh, yes. Check this out. Look how tiny it is. It's so small. Oh, I can't believe how tiny this is. When I ended up ordering this, I mean, there was photos, but you couldn't tell the scale of it. And it wasn't until I looked it up later that I actually realized how tiny this is. Oh, it's so cool. Oh man, this is amazing. So I have to admit, when I ordered this, I didn't really know how small this was. I didn't even know it was a miniature camera at first. Until I looked it up later and it said, there's an advertisement that says, it's like a baby, but it's not a toy. And I didn't really know what they were referring to because, you know, a lot of cameras were marketed as being small, but man, I did not think it was going to be this small. That is awesome. Alright, so let's get into some of the features and how to use the Photavit. So to load the film, we'll pull this plunger out and reveal the back. I've got to figure out how, if they sell the film for this. I haven't looked that up yet because you can see here's a 35mm roll and that is not going to fit. So I think that the film it uses is this size, but it's unperforated, so it doesn't have any of the notches. So I'm not exactly sure how. Maybe we could retrofit it, right? Like take out some film and just create a spool. But I think you do need the spools for it. So that might be something I'm gonna have to look into. So to load the film, you could pull up this here. It gives you that space to slide it in and then lock it in. And one of the things that's really cool is you notice this little red dot right there? That's going to be how you'll reset the counter. So if you spin this dial, you can see there's another red dot. And then on the film counter, the number 20 is lit red, or painted red. So once you've got the film loaded, you can rotate till the red 20 meets the dot, pull up this dial, and then line up all the red. And so what that's going to do is get you set up so your film counter is in the right spot. So then from there, we would throw this back on, lock it in place. This is where it gets really funky. To take a picture, you'll wind this knob, and you can see that metal rod spinning with it. And right there, it's going to trigger this lever, and that essentially releases it so you can take a photo. Now there's a metal bar that's going to stop it, because everything you're doing is manual, so these are just guards to make sure you're basically counting the film. And from here, you actually are going to pull up and over that bar and then spin all the way around. So you're going to have to pull quite a few frames until the film is actually in place. Okay, so now that in theory we have film in there, this is locked and ready to go, but we're not ready to take a picture yet. So we'll move to the front of the camera, and here you'll see the first setting. So this dial here is the shutter speed. Everything from 200th of a second all the way to 1 second, and then you have a B for the bulb, and then timed. Moving to the top, this here is going to be how we'll essentially cock the camera. That's going to get it ready to load. That's going to lock the spring in to shoot the shutter across. And then from here, we've got this dial, which is the aperture. Oh, okay, well that triggered it. We'll just go to F8 Oh, and it goes from 3.5 to f16. And then right here, this is the focus. This metal bar. And yep, it's moving. Yeah, you can see it moving up. That's so cool. Moves pretty smooth for how dirty and old this is. Alright, there was one thing that I skipped up front, and that's this guy right here. This is the timer. These always give me issues with these old cameras, so I'm not going to do the timer yet, but let's just see if this even fires. So let's see here. We'll go ahead and wind. We'll pull the spring. Oh, it's not staying. Okay, so yeah, the shutter is sticking sometimes, but let's see if we got it. I took the back off so we can see through the lens and hopefully actually see the aperture open. So we'll wind it until it hits this knob. Pull the spring back. And fire. Alright, so it does want to work. Definitely needs some love and attention, and it definitely needs some cleaning. How cool. It's so cool. I've never seen anything like this before. Awesome. Okay, yeah. So with the back open, now we can see the aperture. Got it opened up, so we're at 3.5 all the way down to f16. Now one thing that I think is really cool too is the shape of the blades on the shutter itself. So let me get this set so you can actually see those blades. There's 3 of them. Okay, so check out these blades on the shutter, right? I don't think I've ever seen it where it was just the 3, but it's so cool. Alright, and then with the back open, you can see a 24 by 24 millimeter frame, so that's what your photo is going to look like. But, you know, this was still a huge image size for film, so you could still make really large prints with even a camera this small. Another feature of the Photavit is up front you do have a shutter release, so we can screw one of these in and use the cable release rather. But there's definitely going to be some pictures taken with this, because even if I can only get a couple frames, it is worth it. I just got to figure out the film situation. And with the back too, I mean, you can see how there's the leather missing, but with the Photavit III, apparently there was like an aperture depth of field chart on the back that made it stand out. You know, it's too bad that that's missing this, but yeah, maybe you'll just have to kind of recover it with some new leatherette and get it oiled and cleaned, and I don't know, there's life to this camera yet. And just the design, I think, is just so beautiful. I mean, there's really nothing like this that I've seen. It almost gives me kind of like an Art Deco feel. And the viewfinder, there's not much going on in there. It's just that, well, the rangefinder, you know, nothing going on there, but what an awesome camera. And I'm even noticing there's no neck strap spot, so it really is for the pocket. Alright, getting into some of the history of this old camera. So the company Photavit wasn't always called that. In 1921, Johann Bolta started a company, Bolta Work. But they were just making manufacturing parts and pieces. And they specialized in metal casting, which you can obviously see in the design with this camera. So then in 1935, they actually started making cameras. And then in 1937 was when they changed the company name to the Photavit. So Johann Bolta, I guess, had citizenship in the US, which was part of the success of this camera. There's a lot of competition, and he had access to like the US market and the UK market, so that helped him out. But I think at some point he went back to Germany and restarted the company, but they only made cameras into the 50s and then they had to shut their door. But apparently the company Photavit is still around. A German company bought it and they just make parts and pieces again, but I think mostly for cars, which is really interesting. Over a century you start manufacturing just parts, start making cameras of all things, and then yeah, 100 years later, car parts. The lens on this particular Photavit is what would have been considered one of their more budget lens options. It's the Schneider with the Pronter 2 shutter, and they did offer another one that had a a comper shutter. So basically they offered some with better lenses, better features, better options. This particular lens, it doesn't retract, and that was a feature of some of the models before, where the lens would actually go in and out, making it even more compact. But man, how much more compact could this be, right? This is so crazy. I love going over these old cameras and just finding all the little specific details and quirks about them. I did notice that there's a piece of leather missing from this spot, but there's a piece of leather that I almost missed. It's right inside of the tripod mount. It's such a specific detail. I'm thinking maybe it stops the tripod from getting over tightened, but yeah, that was a really nice touch. Oh, what a fascinating camera. This thing is so quirky and it's so tiny. I mean, it's literally just 2.5 inches by a little over 2 inches by 3.5 inches. Like, that's it. So much engineering in such a tight little frame. The way that it counts the film, that whole process is so cool to me. And I mean, again, the size, oh, it's so small. It is a baby. It's not a toy, but it's a baby. And the fact that it has like all the features, the timer and everything in this compact body, it's a beautiful design. I mean, I can't get over the size. I really can't. It's so funny. Wow. Just amazing. What amazing craftsmanship. And actually, I just now noticed that there's a logo right here, the AGC, and that's the shape of the shutter. That is so cool. I just realized that detail. Wow, what an amazing camera. It's beautiful, it's tiny, it's little, it's got all the features that you want if it works, but so cool. I'm definitely gonna have to take some pictures with this. There's no way I'm not going to. I'll figure out the film situation, but wow, so cool, it's so cool. You guys, thanks so much. If you know anything about these cameras, let me know. Or maybe if there's other cameras like this. I mean, these mini cameras I'm so new to. Alright, thanks so much, you guys. This has been a blast. A very miniature blast.